Coming up on Primetime News, Korea's umbrella union group approves a labor reform deal struck over the weekend. Now with the signature of representatives of labor, management, and the government, the deal will be officially effective. For the first time ever, Army Academy graduate General Lee Sun-jin is named as chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, a position that was dominated by elite military academy graduates. Plus, profitability of Korea's major companies fall to their lowest level since 2008 due to continuing union conflicts and the sluggish global economy. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello and welcome to Primetime News on this Monday, September 14th. I'm Hwang Ji-hye.
And I'm Daniel Choy. Thank you for joining us. After an intense afternoon, labor representatives at Korea's umbrella union group gives the green light for a labor reform deal.
The government and the presidential office, as well as the corporate sector, welcomed the move, saying it will set a milestone in pushing through the reforms. Our Kim Min-ji starts us off.
The Central Executive Committee of the Federation of Korean Trade Unions has approved a tentative deal that would ease labor regulations, with 30 out of 48 votes in favor of the move. But reaching this final decision was no easy task. About an hour into the meeting on Monday, the head of the Metal Workers Trade Union attempted to set himself on fire in protest of the deal, temporarily suspending the talks. Such opposition hinged on two contentious points. The Tripartite Committee of Labor, Union and Management Representatives agreed in principle the company should be allowed to sack underperforming workers. This was under the condition that the criteria and procedures would be first worked out between experts, labor and management before any workers were laid off. But union representatives argued that this would make it too easy for companies to lay off workers. Current labor laws stipulate companies can terminate an employee's contract if they are involved in a corruption case or if the company is in serious financial difficulty. Another disputed area was the easing of labor restrictions, which require companies to gain employee consent before changing the terms of their employment. The government has said easing the regulations is a necessary step to get private companies to implement a wage peak system, which will guarantee employment until retirement, but with lower ages after a specific age, and the money saved would be directed at hiring young workers. Although the deal states such processes will come after negotiations with labor and management, labor union representatives argued that management could go ahead and implement regulations it wishes. For now, the road is being cleared, but legislative proceedings remain, while other labor unions are expected to strike in opposition of the deal. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Following the approval, the ruling Saenuri Party and the government have vowed to push through the legislative process for the proposed changes.
But it looks unlikely that the process will be smooth sailing as the opposition is pledging through verification of the bill. Ji Myung-gil reports.
The ruling Saenuri Party and the government agreed to push ahead with legislating a bill to carry out the government's labor reform plans.
Our party has received the government's proposed labour reform bill, and we will propose the bill in the name of our party. We ask the opposition's full cooperation to successfully complete legislating the bill at the National Assembly.
The Saenuri Party plans to convene a general meeting of its lawmakers this Wednesday to discuss the legislating procedures and have the bill passed during the parliamentary regular session. The labor reform bill will include easing regulations to allow companies to dismiss underperforming workers and also allow companies to change the rules of employment. However, the main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy said it is against making it easier for companies to lay off workers, as it would only increase job instability.
Although the provision recommends employment contracts to be consulted with experts, companies can still easily fire workers. The agreement has instigated job insecurity for regular workers and no improvement in working conditions for non-regular workers.
The opposition bloc said that while it would deliberate the bill at the Parliamentary Labor Committee with ruling party lawmakers, it vowed to block any unilateral legislative activities. As reforming the labor market has become a key agenda ahead of next year's general elections, rival parties will likely have a tough time working out the details of the labor reform bill. Kim Young-gip, Arirang News.
Shifting gears, as the planned inter-Korean family reunions draw near, South Korea's Red Cross kept busy on Monday listing eligible survivors. They carefully selected 250 more names from a preliminary shortlist of 500 people that were prioritized based on age, health, and whether they're seeking to meet immediate family or distant relatives. The secondary list of candidates will be handed to North Korea on Tuesday. Both sides are expected to exchange their final lists of participants on October 8th. A total of 200 war survivors will be reunited at North Korea's Mount Kumgang Resort from October 20th to the 26th.
In a major reshuffle, Korea's Defense Ministry has named Army General Lee Sun-jin as the new chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. It was an unprecedented nomination. Kwon So-hwa explains why.
It was an unexpected nomination. Army General Lee Sun-jin has been named as the first ever Army Academy graduate to become the new chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. The position for South Korea's top-ranking officer on active duty up until now was dominated by graduates from the elite Korea Military Academy. The 61-year-old, born in the southeastern city of Daegu, entered the Army Academy in Yeongcheon in 1977 and is currently the commander of South Korea's 2nd Operations Command. Lee is known for his joint operation capabilities with U.S. forces, strong communication skills with colleagues, and ability to rally unity within the military. Once approved at a confirmation hearing at the National Assembly, Lee will replace Admiral Choi Yoon-hee, whose 2-year term ends next month. A date for his hearing has not yet been set. According to a Defense Ministry official, the nominee was selected based on a combination of professionalism, leadership, personality, administrative philosophy.
We will do our utmost so that with this reshuffle, the military will gain more trust from the public.
Also included in the shakeup was the nomination of Army General Chang Jun-gyu as Army Chief of Staff, Army Commander Kim Hyun-jip as Deputy Commander of Combined Forces Command, and Air Force Lieutenant General Chung Kyung-do will be promoted to General and Air Force Chief of Staff. Kwon So-hwa, Arirang News.
The United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights has once again expressed his support for the victims of sexual enslavement by Japan during World War II. At the start of the 30th session of the Council in Geneva on Monday, Zeid Ra'ad Al Hussein gave a speech on various human rights issues around the world. Zeid said the UN human rights bodies would have nowhere to stand unless people's basic rights and freedoms are protected. He added Japan must acknowledge its sexual enslavement of women to restore victims' dignity. One surviving victim in Korea, surnamed Kang, urged Japan to own up to history. She said if leaders of Korea and Japan hold a summit, President Park Geun-hye will rightfully ask Japan's Prime Minister Shinzo Abe to take responsibility for Tokyo's past wrongdoings.
Korea's manufacturing sector is at growing risk, with the operating profit among the top 30 conglomerates dropping below levels seen during the global financial crisis in 2008. Our Connie Kim has the details.
Coming on the back of global economic slowdown, Korea's manufacturing sector is on red alert. According to related industry reports on Monday, operating profit among Korea's top 30 conglomerates logged $48.9 billion last year, lower than the $51.1 billion recorded during the 2008 global financial crisis. The poor corporate report card is partly due to fierce competition from Chinese rivals. Hyundai Motor Group maintained an average 10% market share last year, but this started dropping in May. Korea's tech giant Samsung Electronics also lost in China to its Chinese competitors in the second quarter this year. China's Xiaomi and Huawei took more than a third of the Chinese market, while Samsung held just 9%. But as Korean firms largely ship intermediary goods to China, experts say that even more concerning is China's increasing use of its own intermediary goods. The small technological gap between Chinese and Korean intermediaries is another worrying factor for Korean companies.
Chinese intermediary goods have high price competitiveness. Korean exporters will be hit hard when the Chinese yuan devalues faster than the Korean won devaluation.
Domestic conditions aren't helping the manufacturing sector either. Unionized workers at Hyundai Motor Corporation voted to strike this month, lending support to their leaders in wage negotiations. It'll be the fourth consecutive year of such strikes if it goes ahead. Kumho Tire, whose management and labor unions are also at loggerheads over wage issues, has seen a loss of more than $100 million in sales during their month-long strike. Experts say there are growing calls for compromise between the two to provide a flexible labor market and allow corporate expansion and investment and employment. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
Since the early 1990s, China has been designating so-called new areas or districts as special economic development zones to serve as international hubs and boost economic cooperation with regional neighbors. Our Park Ji-won visited one of the new areas in Dalian City and files this report.
China's State Council has so far approved 14 national-level new areas designated to encourage and attract new developments, especially foreign direct investment, with their advanced infrastructure and simplified regulations. In Jinpu New Area, located in Dalian, is the 10th national new district. It was approved in June of last year and is the only such new area in northeast China. The Special Economic Zone, covering about 2,300 square kilometers, particularly aims to position itself as an international shipping and logistics center in Northeast Asia. Its geographic advantage of having close access to major cities like Beijing, Seoul, and Tokyo, and its ice-free port, which is the largest international trade port in northern China, all benefit the successful operation of the area. More than 20,000 businesses, including 75 companies from Fortune Global 500 corporations like major South Korean companies Hyundai and POSCO, are operating in Jinpu. A number of functional zones exist in this area, and one of them is the China-South Korea Trade and Cooperation Experimental Zone. Established in May, the zone puts a special emphasis on cross-border e-commerce with South Korea, and currently about 100 South Korean companies are either already settled in the zone or planning to come to the site to run their overseas businesses.
We are trying to set up an e-commerce system by inviting a number of South Korea's small and medium-sized companies so that Chinese and Russians can easily buy Korean products.
With China's Ministry of Commerce expecting the average annual growth of e-commerce to reach over 30%, the area is key to provide big potential for China's future growth and more economic cooperation with neighboring countries like South Korea and Japan. Park Ji-won, Arirang News, Dalian.
Now, a growing number of people are opting to share products like automobiles or houses instead of actually purchasing them. And that concept is stretching out to even include working space. Our Kim Ji-yeon introduces us to some of them.
Gone are the days of traditional office cubicles. Now instead, wide tables with open seats are becoming the norm. This is an office space provided by a startup company called Idea Factory, located in Seoul's bustling Gangnam district. It's one of the growing number of companies that aims to lend an ideal working space for startups. Choi Yoon-jung, a content developer for an education agency who's been using the co-working space for more than 9 months now, says the place has a unique working culture of its own.
One of the best things about this place is that there are a lot of content developers who work here from a variety of fields. Having the opportunity to mingle with them freely helps when trying to come up with an idea or quickly finding someone to get a job done.
And for those who want a more secluded space, there is an alternative called Rote that recently opened up in downtown Seoul. And if your business requires frequent meetings with clients but is unable to afford the cost of a prime office, kosher offices like this have popped up in recent years that can help make a very good first impression.
We wanted to create a space that's easy on the eyes. Our target customers are freelancers, including designers, musicians, and those in the IT business that need a decent place to meet face-to-face with their clients.
These co-working spaces aim to cater to the different needs of freelancers and startups and their varying tastes. Private rooms at Rope that can accommodate up to 2 people cost $1,000 a month, while using a communal space at Idea Factory starts at $7 a day. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
Moving over to the world of sports, Lydia Ko has won the Evian Championship to become the youngest major champion ever. On Sunday, the Korean-born New Zealander finished 16 under to beat American Lexi Thompson. The 18-year-old golfer becomes the youngest player of either gender in the modern era to become a major champion. Her victory also means Korea's Park In-bi, the world #1, will have to wait at least another year to complete her super career Grand Slam. Park, who has won 2 majors this season, ended a 5 under, tying for 8th place with 2 other Korean golfers. The best B-boys and B-girls of the world have gathered in Seoul for the World Breakdancing Championships. Not unlike years past, it was a showdown between the country that started the art form and the country that raised it to a whole new level. Our Kwon Jang-ho takes us there.
Welcome to the R16 World B-Boy Championships. It's held in Korea every year, and it's one of the top B-Boy competitions in the world. This is Team Korea, and they are warming up for the big event. They reached this year's World Finals by beating all before them in Korea's national eliminations. That's no mean feat. Korea has one of the most competitive breakdance scenes in the world. Over the last 13 years, 18 of 32 major world crew titles have been won by a Korean team. This success has brought them unprecedented support from the government. In fact, R16's main sponsor is the Korea Tourism Organization.
We wanted to show the world that Korea has a modern and dynamic youth culture. There were national qualifiers in 25 countries. It was a useful opportunity to show a new side of a Korean culture.
The Korean b-boy scene has come a long way since the turn of the century, when performers were largely looked down upon by Korean society.
When we first started to win international competitions, we would still proudly wave the Korean flag. B-boying has now found its place among Korea's Hallyu content, and it's well regarded among the wider public.
Team Korea won the performance section of the competition, but in the main battle event, they were beaten in the semi-final stage by the home nation of b-boying, Team USA. Although Team Korea did not win this year's main R16 title, Korean b-boys can still be proud of their immense achievements over the last decade. And there's always next year. Kwon Jang-ho, Arirang News.
And now for our international news headlines, we turn to our Bruce Harrison at the News Center.
Today's focus, European countries including Germany strengthen security at their borders. Wildfires destroy hundreds of buildings in California. Egyptian security forces accidentally kill tourists. And a Japanese volcano erupts in the Ring of Fire.
Bruce, Austria said it's sending troops to its border and Germany temporarily shut down its checkpoints. Why are crossings for refugees becoming less open?
Ji-hye, these countries, even Germany, are just unable to handle the thousands of refugees pouring across their borders every day. The BBC reports Austria announced it would send troops to its border with Hungary after Germany went ahead and imposed temporary border controls. Berlin said it had no choice but to stem the flow of refugees from war-torn countries, mainly Syria and Iraq. Migrants' arrivals have soared along the southern border with Austria since German Chancellor Angela Merkel effectively opened Germany's borders to refugees last week.
The great willingness to help that Germany has shown in recent weeks by full-time employees and especially by the many thousands of volunteers must not be overstrained. The measures are also a signal to Europe.
The Chancellor said Germany is taking on its humanitarian responsibility, but refugees must be distributed across Europe with solidarity. Interior ministers of the 28-member bloc are now meeting to craft a policy to handle the crisis. Talks will include the distribution of refugees by quota, a system many countries say they'll reject. Thousands of people have fled their homes in Northern California as a wildfire rages. The fire tore through the town of Middletown, destroying hundreds of buildings. The so-called Valley Fire is considered the worst among scores of wildfires throughout the western United States this summer. Thousands of evacuees from Middletown and nearby towns gathered in shelters, restaurants, and friends' houses, and communities untouched by the blaze.
These fires are burning in all directions. They're fuel-driven fires. The plume of smoke is creating its own weather, and so they're very unpredictable.
Governor Jerry Brown has declared a state of emergency as flames moved north toward Napa Valley wine country. The fire has consumed more than 50,000 acres since igniting over the weekend. Egyptian security forces have mistakenly killed 12 people, including tourists. The forces opened fire Monday on a convoy traveling through the desert, and at least 2 Mexicans are among the dead. 10 other people are injured, and Egyptian police and military say they mistook the convoy for militants who they were chasing through the country's western desert. Egypt's tourism ministry spokesman said the convoy was in an off-limits site and using unlicensed cars. Mexican President Enrique Pena Nieto condemned the attack on his Twitter account, describing it as a tragic incident and demanding a full investigation. The Egyptian Interior Ministry confirmed there will be an investigation into how and why the tourist entered an off-limits area. The Ring of Fire in the Pacific Ocean lived up to its name today. Mount Aso in Japan erupted, spewing gray ash and smoke high into the air. The Japanese government hasn't reported any injuries or damage, but Japan's meteorological agency raised the severity of the eruption to level 3, indicating areas within 2 kilometers of Mount Aso as dangerous. The volcano, one of the most active in the region, is located on Japan's southernmost main island of Kyushu. The government has set up an initial intel room, and dispatched manpower to assess the situation. The last time a volcano erupted in Japan this month a year ago, 63 people were killed. It was the deadliest eruption in more than 100 years. And that's your international news for now. Have a great night.
Chilly morning conditions gave way to a warm afternoon today, but big gaps in temperatures will continue to span over 10 degrees here in Seoul, while lows remain in the mid-teens. The highs overall will be above the 25 seasonal averages, so be sure to dress accordingly to avoid catching a cold. And mostly sunny skies will dominate the peninsula, with a few increasing clouds expected heading towards the mid-afternoon, but still we'll hang on to clear out of weather across the nation tomorrow, but Jeju will see spotty rain tomorrow night. On that note, let's take a closer look at the readings for Tuesday. Seoul will start off at 17 but will soar to 28, while Daegu and Busan will be picking 25, and Gwangju will top out at 27 tomorrow afternoon. And as for the other regions, Daejeon and Jeju Island will see a high of 26 and 24, while Dokdo rises to 21. Autumn sunshine will be featured all week long. In fact, 20 to 30 minutes of sun bath should help you to get refreshed, so enjoy the beautiful autumn afternoon while it's here. Well, that's all for the weather. Good night.
And that's primetime news for you today. Thank you for staying with us.
We'll be back same time tomorrow. Goodbye for now.